think it was different. Like, you saw other movies shot kind of like that before, but never with that camera angle. I mean, you literally, like, the camera was the monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is crazy.
They use a lot of POV shots in this movie. And basically, if you don't know the plot of this movie, which you should, it's basically the plot of pretty much half the horror movies ever made. It's a bunch of kids that go to a cabin in the woods. Woo! You know, super original. And they go to the cabin in the woods, and basically the forces of the evil dead start to attack and kill them one by one, possess them, all these things. And, of course, the lead character is Ash, played by the legendary Bruce Campbell.
Love him.
Who, in this movie, is a completely different character than from what he would... Yeah, he went on to become the badass, you know, groovy and all that stuff. We'll get there. But, man, like, in this movie, he's very laid back. He's just kind of the chill boyfriend of the two guys.
Yeah, he kind of doesn't know what's going on either. Like, you know, he's as baffled as everybody else. It's not like he has, like, inside scoop kind of thing. So
absolutely. And I think right off the bat what this movie does, it sets an atmosphere, man.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Super, like, I love the opening when they get to the house and Scott, the character Scott, kind of walks towards the door.
Yeah.
And on the porch, they have that little attention to detail with the porch and the swing moving back and forth. Yeah. And they're just all kind of looking at him, and it's broad daylight.
Yeah.
But man, is that scary! Like,
and they use slow builds the entire movie. A lot of slow builds. Like, it really takes them to get where they're going. But once they get there, it's like, you know, balls to the wall. It's awesome.
100%. And it's like that helps a movie organically move forward. Like, there are a lot of movies from this time period that have one or two paces. They either have that really fast pace, you know, kill every 5 minutes, and then you have movies like this that are slow burn. Like, right off the bat, like you're kind of just led into this world, and you're led into what happens. And of course, they find this book in the cellar. And in this movie, it's not called the Necronomicon. Yeah. It's called something like, I always forget what it's called.
Like it sounds similar. It's not Necronomicon. It's something like Necro.
It's like Des Mortis.
Something weird, yeah. It's
something dead in Spanish, you know, like something like that. I don't remember. I know I always refer to it as the Necronomicon because that's just cooler.
Yeah.
And they find this book, and basically they play this recording where this guy kind of and his wife they were reading all the stuff in the book, and in essence, pretty much bring all these evil dead spirits.
Brings them all
back. And like you were saying, with these camera shots and angles from the woods, like, I loved what they did was they had that wind rush sound effect.
Yeah.
While you're kind of doing these tracking shots through the woods.
Yeah.
And instead of, usually tracking shots are to pulling away. Like you'll have a character running towards the camera as you pull away. In The Shining. In The Shining, that's used a lot.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's totally like it's coming for you. And that gives the viewer a really big sense of claustrophobia, don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you feel the whole time like the monster's coming for you, or whatever's coming for you, but in reality, it's going for the characters. But the way they shoot that is perfect. Even the scene where they're reciting, or they're hearing the recitings from the book, and they slowly give you that ground shot of, like, the ground raising, and you're like, what's coming out of there? Like, what's going to happen? So that's like a great build too. But that's a great use of the camera because it's just it's a simple camera, just stationary, but just watching this thing roll up. And the use of like kind of stop motion is great in this movie too. Yeah. I mean, in all of the movies, but this movie, for at least the time, I think stop motion was like not really. I don't think that was being used. I mean, if you could, I don't know.
Not in horror.
Yeah,
no,
so.
like it was used in animation. Like I don't know if people remember. Do you remember Wallace and Gromit?
I do.
That was like the pioneer for stop motion.
Yeah.
Like all of that was stop motion animation.
All that claymation.
And like to use it in a movie like this, and granted, I don't think it has aged well.
No.
It hasn't, like the stop motion in this particular movie. In the other movies, yes, I think it aged a lot better.
The only scene that didn't is in the second one where the body's like dancing.
Oh gosh! Oh, that's a riot though.
Yeah.
No, in this
it's
movie,
hilarious, but it's so like, oh man, what's going on?
I think of the bodies decomposing at the end of this one, and it's just like
you could tell it's totally clay, but it definitely didn't age well, but it's still cool. It's still freaky.
Yeah, and like this is the thing with Sam Raimi. Like you have to kind of tip your cap to him because at this time everybody was doing one thing. Like the mentality was, let's make a slasher so we can make money. Yeah. And we can fill our pockets and all these fancy houses and treat ourselves to these luxuries. He was like, no, I want to make something original. I want to make something that scares people genuinely, and I want to make something that people remember. And I think he absolutely did that here.
It definitely did that. I mean, it's always been one of my favorite like horror movies, or just in the horror franchise. Always been one of my favorites because I like I like the possession movies. I think they're awesome, but I also like the zombie stuff. And it did a good mix, and just everything he did with it was something that you had never seen before, and it was different. And I like different because you don't have that like similar taste. It gives you something fresh, and then it opens you up to a new, scope of things. So maybe you dive into a new genre.
Absolutely, and it was like I said, it was at a time where everything felt the same, and that's the problem. Like, you need to be different. You need to keep reinventing yourself as a genre, because there's only so long where slasher movies will remain and stand the test of time until it became goofy, and then towards the late '80s, it was dying. It became, like I said in another episode, it became '80s hair bands.
Yeah,
like as much as I dig Motley Crue,
there was just too much.
It was too much, absolutely. It wore out its welcome.
The market's saturated.
Yeah, and this movie, I think, man, like, and a lot of people will disagree with this, but whatever. I've always found this movie to be one of the scariest ever made.
It's definitely scary. I mean, of the three, I think the first one is the scariest. I think because of not so much the content, I think more the build up to the content. Like, it gives you that like edge of your seat thriller, like almost like, I mean, to me, when I watch it, every time it brings that little bit of a smile to my face, because I'm like, oh man, something cool's gonna happen. Like, oh, and then it happens, and you're just like pumped up about it, because it builds up so well. So I think that's what makes it super, super scary. Like, the content is definitely like, you're scared, but it's like, it has that slasher cheese to it, which is great.
Yeah, it does.
But the build-up, I think, is the scariest part.
Absolutely.
Of all of them, but that one, the first one particularly.
Absolutely. He builds tension in these scenes. And, like, the scene I really love is when this one girl is she's going crazy, and she's screaming, and she's all afraid and stuff. And one of the girls just kind of grabs a pencil and stabs her, like, in the back of the, like, heel.
Yeah.
Like, right... And the effects on that, man, it to this day looks real.
It does.
Like, that's
and you weren't expecting that either. Like, you saw her grab the pencil, but you didn't know what was gonna happen. Like, I remember when I first watched it, I thought she was going straight for Ash. Like, he was right there. Mm-hmm. She's going right for him, and she just hits that girl on the ankle, and you're like, you're so taken back by it, because it's not something you were expecting. And the effects are really awesome. Like, I love that. That's a great use of practical effect. Like, just the digging in and the turning. It's great.
Yeah, and they linger on that shot, too. It's almost like Raimi is like, feel this pain. And, like, I remember the first time I watched this, I was like, oh. It was one of those moments where you just keep trying to move back because it's so claustrophobic. Yeah. But you're like, I got to keep watching, too. This looks so damn real.
It definitely does.
And, like, I love that they do those little, attention to detail type of scenes where they're playing cards. She's like, oh, guess the card I have. And she's like, oh, three of clubs. And she's dead wrong. It's like 9 of diamonds. She's like, oh, you got it right. And then the girl that had been infected and kind of
previously like possessed,
she's sitting by the window just minding her own business, and she starts reading off the cards one by one. She's like, 3 of spades, 4 of spades. It's so scary. And she kind of just turns around and she's a demon. I was just like, yo, what's going on in this movie?
And they give you that like first look at like the real like crazy like what these things kind of look like. They give you that first look, and you don't even know what to do, because you're just looking and you're like, what is this thing? What is happening?
Dude, and like there are a lot of horror movies with like brutal like scenes where men take advantage of women when it comes to rape and stuff like that. But like the rape scene in this movie is terrifying because it's not a man, it's a tree.
Yeah.
She gets raped by a tree in this movie. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a movie.
It definitely is weird. Like, you watch it and you're kind of, you
aroused.
Don't know what to think. You don't know what to think. Like, you're like, it's a tree, but like, is it the demon? Is like, what is happening? And you can't. It's like a scene. It's like one of those like, I can't turn away. It's kind of like the car accident thing. It's like I can't turn away. I have to, but I can't.
Exactly. And like, I think it's so well done as you see the vines kind of slowly go up her legs, and you're just like, yo, is this about to happen? And then whoosh, and I was just like, wow, like you're going there.
And it's a time too before like CGI. That's all practical, which is even more impressive, because that's somebody like winding trees and branches around someone, which is so like, it seems tedious, but it makes it feel more real.
Yes, exactly.
Less than a CGI scene.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, that's a big problem I had with the remake, and we'll get to the remake.
Yeah.
But like that, like, I remember that whole sequence in the remake was all CG.
Yeah.
And then the director was like, oh, like no way. Like he shot a scene in 1981 and made it look scarier and more real than somebody that did it in 2013. Like that just like goes to speak volumes about Evil Dead. And like other scenes I really liked. I liked when Scott has to take the axe to his own girlfriend. Right? Like, could you do that? Like, I could never hack up my own girlfriend.
He's asking Ash to do it, and like Ash is not gonna do that, and he's like, and then he just takes it upon himself to do it, which is so like crazy. Like Ash is holding that axe, and he's like, he wants him to do it, but he because he knows he can't, and then he eventually kind of musters up and he does it, and you're like, whoa, what's going on with this character? Like, is there something deeper behind it?
Dude, 100%. And like, I think the cool thing about it is it's like it shows that Ash is kind of timid, you know? Yeah. Like, you're like, Ash was not born the badass that he became.
Exactly.
Scott has to literally take the axe from him. He's like, hit her. And then, and I love that Raimi kind of just has the gore pour down the front of the camera. So it just engulfs the scene. Work of art, man.
He does a lot of that with the use of like the blood pouring down things, and it works perfectly. The best part of it I remember is when it's going to the light bulb, and you're like, is it coming from the outside? But you hear like it filling up, like kind of like a cup fills up with water.
Right.
It fills up, and then when it bursts at the end, you're like, whoa. And the same thing with the film reel too. It starts dripping on the film reel, and you see it slowly hitting it, and by the time that scene is like over, the whole screen is covered with blood, and you're like, oh, you don't even know what to say. You're just so taken back.
Yeah, and like I think that's probably my favorite scene in this whole movie.
Yeah,
like I love that where he has to go down into this deep dark basement with the Hills Have Eyes poster in the corner. I always thought, wow, that's so cool. Like that's one of my favorite movies too. And he just kind of slowly, and as the light fills up, and like it's so well done. And then you're just waiting for something to happen, and then boom, it happens. And I think like. Overall, this is one of the best horror movies. Like because it's so simple, it's so low budget, and it's everything that speaks to why original content movies kind of work. Like I would throw this up there with Halloween. I would throw this up here with and my favorite movie like Dawn of the Dead. Like I think it's one of the best ever.
I think because of the content, because of everything that was done with it, I think it definitely puts it in that high category of like top tier horror movies because it gives you something different. Like with Halloween, you get classic slasher. With Friday the 13th, you get you get a lot of the same thing in the same mold, which is fine. Everything does its own thing. This movie gives you something completely different, which is like something that you might need after watching all those. It's not to say those other ones are bad; they're great, but sometimes you want that fresh taste, and it did something. Which it's a movie that got me more into horror because I never was into it as much. And then you watch that and you're like, all right, maybe this is the genre. Even with the end shot. I love that last shot where you think that's it. They've won. Ash has won. Everyone's dead, but Ash is still there. He's alive, and he runs out, and it's all bright and sunny out, and that monster comes right back out and hits him. And the movie ends with just him screaming and...
Fade to black, like, and what? They play really goofy.
It's weird music. It's like Pee Wee Herman type music, and you're like so like this doesn't fit. Which is another thing. It's almost like it goes back to that whole how horror and comedy are kind of synonymous.
Yeah.
Because with horror, you can't help but when you're afraid. I feel like when you're afraid, you laugh because that's the only thing that makes you feel. Like comforted, like if I laugh at this, it's not going to be as scary. So I think they did that so well with the way the scenes were shot and that weird music at the end because it makes you feel like, all right, it was really, really scary, but maybe everything's not as scary as it should be. And then you lead to the next movies and you're like, no, things are really scary. Like just get ready.
Absolutely, that's a perfect transition to. I mean, Evil Dead. We'll do ratings on all of them too.
Yeah,
kind of cool.
I'm into that.
Evil Dead. I'd give this a 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best horror movies of all time. And I actually another thing I just want to mention really quick. Stephen King saw this movie and reviewed it and called it the most ferociously original horror movie of all time.
I did not know that.
And that is the reason that people like went out and saw this movie. Like that's the reason that people were like, let's go see this, Yeah. And like that's why it got over. Stephen King's quote. Without Stephen King's quote, I don't know if everybody's going to be renting this. Like maybe they see it and see, oh, Stephen King liked it because Stephen King at that time was Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining. So to see his blessing and endorsement,
That's the best thing you can get.
absolutely.
As a person in that genre, that's the best thing you can receive. I mean, Sam Raimi, I don't know really. I mean, if you say that name, I don't know if you really will get anybody to know. Unless they know horror, they'll know it from that. But I don't really think you get anybody to know his name. I mean, other than the Spider-Man movies, I don't think there's really been anything that he's been super big on. Not to like discredit Sam Raimi. I just think like his name wasn't
Not
really
a household
out there.
name.
It's not a household name when you think of it. Like you think of like you hear John Carpenter, you're like, oh yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah.
Like he's put
Craven.
out just constant like content. Craven, Romero, like putting out content that you like, oh, I recognize it. I know what that is. You know, they're involved in these large things. Raimi, you were like, what does he do? Like, and then you see this and you're like, oh, that's what he does. Like he does that so well, which is great. I love it.
It's fantastic. So what would you give Evil Dead?
I would say it's definitely a really good horror movie. I would say 9 out of 10. It's probably one of the first ones I would watch if I were to watch it in like, oh, I'm going to watch a bunch of horror movies, or, you know, around Halloween you start watching horror movies. I would probably watch it. It probably wouldn't be the first one I would watch. It's definitely awesome. Of the three, I love Army of Darkness because I love like more comedy with that horror backdrop, and that's what that is. So I love that one a lot. So that one I would watch more, but it's not to say that the first one's not good. But I would say 9 out of 10. That's like the best rating I can give it.
Excellent, excellent. So that is Evil Dead. If you have not seen it, go see it. Get out of that box that you're living in. See the light, see the snow, see the Evil Dead. All right, so here we go. We transition to what a lot of people would probably say is their favorite of the series, and it is Evil Dead 2 from 1987, again written and directed by Sam Raimi. And I'll give people a little bit of background as to why this movie actually like came out and existed. Sam Raimi, after Evil Dead, was a huge like people in Hollywood were like, let's do a movie with Sam Raimi. Let's give this guy a budget.
Yeah.
And the movie he ended up making was a movie called Crime Wave. And it was actually written by the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers that would go on to make The Big Lebowski, you know, Fargo. I mean, legendary Oscar, you know, No Country for Old Men. I mean, those are two of the most synonymous names, writers. And Raimi was going to direct, and Bruce Campbell was going to star. And, like, everybody was going crazy. Like, everybody was like, oh, you know, this is going to be awesome. The movie bombed at the box office. I think this movie only did not even gross over $10,000.
I don't know the definite numbers, but I remember seeing it and I was like, it just wasn't something that was good. Like I've seen Coen. I mean, after that, you know, you see Coen Brothers movies and you're like, how is that so bad? Like, what was the thing that was missing? And I don't know if it was, you know, the way it was written or the actors or anything. I think it just didn't have altogether. It didn't have that formula.
Yeah, it didn't have that formula. And I love one of my favorite quotes of all time. Bruce Campbell said that Crime Wave was not a movie that was released. It was a movie that escaped. Like that is the perfect way to put it.
And that's only something that he would say too. Like that's a Bruce Campbell thing.
It's classic. It's classic Campbell. So basically that movie flopped, and then Sam Raimi was like, listen, I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to go back to what brought me to the dance. And yes, he had grown as a filmmaker at that time. He had kind of adapted even to being something bigger, better, and badder than what he was with the original Evil Dead. And out comes Evil Dead 2. And I think this is one of, if not the greatest horror comedies of all time. Like this movie, I would say this movie straight up horror.
No, yeah.
Like
one is definitely
very
horror.
few parts where I laugh. Like, unless, like you were saying.
Unless, I mean, the only part that I really laughed was like Laugh was the end with that weird song when the movie's over. But never like during the movie, I was like never like belly laughing. I was more just like kind of doing that smirk, like that's kind of weird. But then you get back to like being scared. The second one, you're kind of like laughing through a lot of it because there's just weird things going on. But it makes it better, I think. Yeah,
it's funny. The opening of this movie, I always thought was a riot because like it totally forgets the characters in the other movies, and the honest to God reason to that was they didn't have the money to hire those actors back, so they were just like, all right, we're gonna change everything. We're gonna have you and a different girl playing your girlfriend in the cabin. Crazy stuff's gonna go down, and then the rest of the movie you're gonna be fighting the Evil Dead in the cabin alone while these other people try to come to you. And man, I just have an absolute ball with this movie, don't you?
It is really fun. It is really fun to watch. And it's like, it's basically, if you've never seen it, if you've never seen the first one, you could just watch Evil Dead 2 and go, that's the first one. Because everything that happens in the first like 5 minutes of the movie is the first Evil Dead, just completely like wrapped up, and it's perfect because then it leads into like an even greater story, because you kind of wonder at the end of the first one if you've seen it in today's world, you're like, oh, there's more after it, so I want to know. Where like when it came out, it was like, oh, is there going to be more? Like, what's going to happen? Evil Dead 2 like kind of finishes that up and is like, this is what happens, and it's great.
Yeah, and it's like the great thing about it is like, just he was like, okay, I'm gonna pretty much remake this movie, but I'm gonna use all the techniques and stuff I do, and I'm just gonna tone up everything. I'm gonna tone up the gore. I'm gonna tone up the violence. I'm gonna tone up the comedy. And like, that's the thing about this movie. It's so damn funny. Like, there's a scene where Ash's hand gets possessed, and he literally has like a 5.5-minute fight scene with his own hand. Like he's like this and like fighting, and like he basically he flips himself over with his own hand, and then he actually comes to the point where he has to try to chop off his own hand. Like his own hand's breaking plates.
Yeah,
his head. Like,
and he's like hitting the ground like hard. Like it's so like, but you know what it is? That also takes huge skills, like as an actor, to act like you're fighting yourself, which is so like, you think, oh, that's an easy thing. Like I just I make my hand get attack myself, but that's hard.
Damn right.
It looks hard, and it makes that more of a real scene, and it's hilarious too, which is even better. So to make that like scary and funny at the same time, that takes skill. So
yeah, it's like, I could never flip myself over with my own hand and pretend to be like that it's killing me. Bruce Campbell deserved an Oscar for that scene. Like, it's so fantastic. I'm just like, I'm watching it the whole time, which is like my hands on my head. I'm just like, how did you do that so well, man? But it's funny, and like, I love the close up, and he goes, "This ends now."
Yeah.
And he just cuts his own hand off. He's like, "Yeah," like, and then all the blood just kind of slowly just kind of sprays on his face.
Yeah.
Classic.
It's a good use of like blood spatter too, because they're just hitting you, and it's like you'd be like, there's not that much blood when you cut your hand off, and they're like, no, that it is, and it's hitting him, and it just keeps hitting him, and you're like, you just so like, what?
You can, dude, that's the thing with this movie. You can almost taste the blood in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I could taste the blood. There's so much in it. And like, I love the scene also where he's kind of just in the middle of the room, and like they have this dead deer on the wall.
Yeah.
And the deer kind of turns and looks at him and starts laughing at him. And everything, including the lamps, the couches, everything starts laughing at him in the room. And then he just kind of turns to the camera, crosses his eyes, and bawls laughing too.
Yeah, which is just, it's just crazy. It's just a crazy scene.
It's just so crazy. Like, you're just like, wow, this is bat crap crazy. And it's unapologetic, man. And like, that's why I think this movie works for a lot of people. And I think this has become a really big cult movie.
Yeah, I think the whole franchise, definitely 2 being like the catalyst for it, but I think the whole franchise is such a cult thing. It's like, you like horror, and then it's like, you're an Evil Dead fan. Yeah. There's 2 separate pieces of it, which is great because it hooks both the genres. Like, I mean, it's not that it's its own genre, but it hooks both the things together.
I think it's not its own genre. It has its own rules. Yeah, I think that's what sets it apart from other movies. Like Romero's movies were always ripped off the zombie movies, and like the zombie movies that now come out now have those rules. Yeah. The Walking Dead, you get bit, you turn into a zombie. You know what I mean? Like, these movies, that never really happened. There was never movies that were like, okay, these are the Deadites now. Yeah. That's why, like, this is its own thing, and I think that's a point and like a really big part as to why it works. But I think he does a lot of really good shots in this movie again. Yeah, like, he really
definitely really good use of the camera.
He really proved how much he grew as a filmmaker, I think, even in those 6 years in between. And like, I just love, man, some of the characters in this movie, like the like hillbilly couple.
Yeah, they're just like,
they're
totally ridiculous. Like, the one gets shot, and she like walks on the door, and she's like holding her arm, but there's like nothing going on there. She's just holding her arm, and you're like, did you really get shot? Like, what happened? So it's just like, they're just wacky characters, but it's perfect because it plays into that whole wacky like aspect of the film.
Yeah, and like I love the eyeball scene. Yeah, where they're fighting this ginormous demon, and he's chainsawing it in the neck, and then basically this eye pops out and goes right down this woman's throat. She's like, oh! Yeah, and you're just like, what? Like,
it's just like, so crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's fun, man. Like, this is, I would say of all 3 of these movies, as much as I love the original, and I think it's a great straight up horror movie, and as much as I love this movie that we'll get on to talk about next, I think these are perfect movies to watch with a group of friends.
Yeah, they're fun. Just like, hey, let's watch a movie, and you throw that on, and it's different. It's not like usually it's like, oh, let's watch a comedy, but that doesn't do much because when you're watching a comedy, everybody's like laughing and it's laughing over the content. Where this, it's like you have that moment where everybody laughs, and it's like they break almost in it for you to laugh because there's stuff going on, but you're not like honed in. And then there's the moments where you get super honed in on it, and you're like, everyone's quiet, everyone's watching, and then everyone breaks for laughter again, which is great. It's a great like formula for a film.
Yeah, it's a great popcorn movie. Like if I'm gonna have 10 people to come over and we gotta watch a horror comedy, this is probably the one I'm gonna stick in. Like we all went to Miranda's for a movie night. And, like, if she had a Blu-ray player, I know this is what we would have watched. And I think we would have had a ball watching this. Because it's just a perfect, like, let's get some pizza, some popcorn, some broskies, some broskies. For some people, some brewskis. I like the dooskies. But, like, it's just one of those things where it's, like, it's so damn fun. It's so, like, let's turn our brain off, enjoy the stuff on the screen. And, like, it's a good movie to be like, I need an hour and a half. I just need an hour and a half.
Yeah, and it does that. And you know what it is? They move well, 2, I think, moves quicker than the first one because the pacing in it is a lot more like boom, 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 boom. Where the first one is like, it hits you and then it drags a bit. And then it hits you again and then it drags a little bit. But it's good dragging because it's building up to that next boom. Where the other ones are like, the second one is like boom, 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 and just keeps hitting you. It's crazy.
Yeah, so 100%. And like, I love. There's so many great scenes, like I said, in this one. I always really liked and it's done in the first one too. But I think in this movie, it's done a little bit better when they're preparing at the end to fight the Evil Dead, and like he's in the shack, and like everything. What he does is he picks up something, places it down, so it's like, and then it's cut the scene. Like him keep picking up stuff, picking up objects like chainsaw, getting all these things, and they're getting ready, battle ready. And then, of course, the classic where he flips the old gun in his back pocket. He's got the chainsaw ready on his hand, and groovy.
And that solidifies it as like a great franchise because when you can build all of that up to one scene and have just a simple line as groovy become like
iconic.
It's not exactly iconic is the best word for it. It just becomes iconic. Everybody knows that. Like they know that scene where he's like, oh, that's the scene where he says groovy. Even if you're not a fan of the movie, if you've never seen it, you still know that scene. If you know movies, you've seen that scene.
Yeah,
and it's a great scene.
It's because and like that's the thing with Bruce Campbell, man. He has so much fun with this role, and like he knows when to be serious, he knows when to be funny, and like I think that's the fun part about it is just like you don't know it changes tone like crazy.
Yeah.
Like you just like it's crazy, but like I just have such a good time with Bruce Campbell in these movies, and especially probably this one the most. As much as I love Army of Darkness as well, I just have such a ball watching him in Evil Dead 2. He's fighting his own hand. He's fighting these crazy demon monsters. He's fighting a woman that thinks he's he gets hit with a shovel. He goes through the ringer in this movie, and like of course the over the top gore. Like this and probably Dead Alive are the splatter movies.
Yeah,
this is splat stick comedy. And it's so much fun, man. I just love Evil Dead 2. A lot of people would say it's probably the best of the franchise. I don't know if I'd go there. But also I would, if I had to rank it, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10 too.
All right, I'd probably give it the same as Evil Dead because it does the same for me. I think it probably all of them I'd give like 9 out of 10.
Okay,
that's
a spoiler, ladies and gentlemen.
Spoiler for later.
So Evil Dead 2, I give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a very fun time. It's honestly, here's the difference between these movies. This is straight up horror. This is straight up splat stick. Whichever one you like better, it doesn't matter. They're both classic movies. I think they're both perfect movies. I really do. I don't think you can really beat these two movies when it comes to franchise movies. And and honestly, Evil Dead 2 really saved Sam Raimi's career.
It did.
Like, I don't know if without Evil Dead 2 that you'd have him making the Spider-Man movies. I don't know if you'd have him making Darkman, which is his follow-up, I believe. Yeah, so we'll transition. After this, he made Darkman. He may have made something else in between as well, but I don't remember. Darkman came out in 1990, 91, and that was a huge hit. That's a comic book kind of adaptation, really, really big hit.
Yeah.
And with the success of that movie, they were like, can you make one more Evil Dead? And he was like, absolutely. And I will let the great Tom, you want to hold this one up?
I'll hold this one
because I know this is Tom's favorite.
I love this one.
This is Tom's favorite.
Is it in the view of the camera?
It's
there. It's right up against it. It's right in the thing.
How am I, by the way? Am I good? or am I Anakin Skywalker again? Okay, good. I don't hate sand like he does. But yeah, man, Army of Darkness. Tell me. I know this is your bread and butter, so I want you to tell me what your thoughts are.
I love this movie. It just has it knows it's fun. Mm-hmm. It has fun with it, and the whole time you're just kind of waiting for more of that fun. And it picks up like directly where Evil Dead 2 left off, which was a weird ending for it to end. And you're just like, where is this going? Like he's like fighting with knights now.
Yeah.
And it just has so many like cool things. So like even the content of it where like he's back in the Crusades era is just weird. But he's back in the Crusades era with a shotgun and a chainsaw hand, which is even more weird. But a lot of cool things come out of it. I think just like the way that it kind of is shot. I think the fight, and this is what I think. I think the fight in the well in the water, that's like when Walking Dead did their thing. They used that as a huge inspiration with the well walker. I think that was like a big inspiration because it's such a great scene. You see this like engorged deadite and you're like, that's so gross. It's so weird. It's so grotesque. Like, and he's just fighting this thing and he climbs out of this pit and he has so many iconic like scenes. But the one iconic thing you get from it is the boomstick line where it is like, now that's like part of the franchise. It's like, that's his boomstick. Like that's his boomstick. He knows it. And that's awesome. So dude. It's really awesome. It's just a fun movie. I just have a great time watching it. It's such like it to me it's very comic booky because it's very like it knows it's kind of silly, but it still takes itself kind of seriously and it has so many like cool little pieces to it. So I don't know, that's how I look at it. Like me being a comic book fan and being into all that stuff, I think this kind of does that. It blends into that genre.
Yeah, so. Definitely. It blends into that world, and like that's the fun thing about it. Like every movie, you kind of change tone. Serious horror movie, then you have splatstick comedy, and then with that movie, you have kind of comedy horror comic book movie.
Yeah.
And like all these, like you wouldn't think, you'd think like that sounds like a cluster, like it doesn't sound like it would work, but that's how you stay fresh, vibrant.
Exactly.
You're like, okay, we're changing everything up here. Now we're in the different time period.
Yeah.
We still have Ash. We all know and love Ash. We still have our Deadites, and then we're gonna do some crazy stuff. And of course, probably my favorite line of this movie, the skeleton. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the funniest. Like I always quote that. Like if I want to leave somewhere, I always quote that skeleton. Like that's legendary, man. And like. The thing with, would you agree with that? This one's more comedy horror?
Yeah, I think like it has the backbone of comedy with like the dustings of horror. So like the surrounding of it, like the main thing is we're gonna be funny, but it gives you that horror kind of covering, which is good. Like it goes under the guise of a horror movie, but is really a comedy like at its heart, which makes it like. It makes it different, and it definitely, like you said, like it freshens the entire genre up the whole series up because you have 3 different movies essentially. They're all under one umbrella, but they're 3 different pieces.
Exactly, and that is why it works. That's Sam Raimi got it. Like people give him trash. Spider-Man 3. A lot of people just once that movie came out, they seem to just give up on Sam Raimi. I refuse. I like this trilogy alone. I'll never ever give up on Sam Raimi. I like other movies he's done too. Like I like The Gift.
He's definitely done a lot of like decent movies. I'm one of the people that like there's parts of Spider-Man 3 I enjoy. Like being a comic book fan, it's like people like give you crap for it. It's like, oh, you like Spider-Man 3? It's like I don't like it. There's just parts of it I like.
I just like like even like or dislike. I just don't like that people seem to give up on filmmakers.
Exactly, yeah, because they saw one bad movie and they think their whole career is based off of that, which is not. Like, there's other content that they put out. You just have to give it that chance.
Dude, that's why I have you on my show because you're level-headed and like you can think for yourself.
Thank you,
I despise people that see one movie from a director and are like, he's never done anything good and he was overrated from the beginning. Like,
yeah,
dude, like shut up. Like that's not like you can't,
exactly.
Like watch Spider-Man 2. That's a
not
great
everybody's
movie.
gonna be a Spielberg. Not everybody's gonna be
even Spielberg has made
and he's made some movies that are okay.
Like I love Hook, but like I think Spielberg hates it.
Yes, I think that's one of his biggest like movie regrets is like making that movie. And I saw that Ready Player One movie recently, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. It got a lot of acclaim, but I didn't see like the calling to it. Like it didn't like make me want to go and see it. It was okay. So like you're gonna get those, but you don't give up on that director.
No,
I'm gonna see things that Spielberg puts out. I'm just not gonna see that again.
Of course.
You gotta make your choice.
Some people have some misses, but like to overlook the hits is just silly.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. And I don't dwell on. I'm not saying that because he made Evil Dead, every movie he makes is great.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying it's just like it's unfair. Like I feel like a lot of people once that movie came out, when he made Drag Me to Hell, when he tried to come back to the genre, everybody was like, "Nope, I refuse. I refuse." Okay, I think it's a decent enough movie. It's a watchable movie, but like you can't just cut the cord on the poor guy. I don't know. I felt kind of bad about it, but dude, do you have any favorite scenes from Army of Darkness?
I really like the end battle.
Dude, me too.
So cool because it's so like. It's just so ridiculous, but it's so fun, and he's just that's Ash that you like are like, oh, that's Ash. That's the Ash that I know, and then that's the Ash that kind of transitions to the show too, where like you have that like he's kind of takes things sort of half serious, but at the root of it, he's like, these are dangerous things.
Yes,
but still makes fun of it and still makes it like a fun time. So that's I love that the most. I love that, and I love the scene where he uses the boomstick line. I love those two scenes. Those are two great scenes: the end battle and that one scene with the boomstick.
Dude,
love it,
dude. I couldn't agree more. Did you know that the original ending to this was changed?
No, I didn't know that.
The original ending to this was Ash was not going to get back to present day. And that's funny because I love the ending scene. It's crazy where he just takes that woman.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome way to end a series. But the original ending was going to be that he screws up the verbiage again, and he's stuck there forever.
Wow.
And like they shot that, completed it, handed it in, and we're like, this is the movie. And the studio, and I'm glad that, I don't know if it was Tappert, which was always Raimi's producer, Rob Tappert. I don't know who it was, but somebody stepped in and said, no way. Like somebody was like, this has to end with a more fun tone. And I'm very glad
it's better that it did though, because then it gives birth to new stuff that can come out of it. Like, I mean, you wouldn't get the series, I don't think, if the ending wasn't like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe you would have, but I can't tell like what the future would have been if it was different, but maybe you wouldn't have gotten the series. The series was great, so I don't know if you would have gotten that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that I did not know.
I think
that's
always
key info.
I think it's always nice to end a movie like that, especially on a high note. Like same thing with Dawn of the Dead. I don't know if you knew this either. In the original Dawn of the Dead, the final two characters were going to commit suicide. That was the final. They were about to shoot it, and Romero was like, "Pump the brakes. This has got to end on a happy ending." And it literally ends with an A-Team style ending where they play the A-Team music as Ken Foree battles a bunch of zombies, gets up to the helicopter. How much fuel do we have left? Not much. They drive away. I mean, that's my favorite ending to any. It's my favorite movie.
It's definitely a really good ending.
Yeah, it's because it's happy. It makes you leave and you're like, wow.
It gives you that like hope sense, like, oh, there actually is hope somewhere in this, like all this darkness. There is hope, which is awesome.
Exactly.
So it definitely like makes the movie. It makes the movie more impactful because you're like you deal with the character's struggle the whole time, whatever the character may be. And at the end, you get that sort of like breath of relief, which is nice. It's good to do that. Like it's definitely good to have that.
100%. So if you had to rate this one out of 10, I'm thinking I guess you're going 9 again.
I'm gonna say 9. I think it's awesome. Like I like all of them. I like Army of Darkness way more, but like if I'm gonna watch this one definitely like more than the other ones.
So it is your favorite.
It is my favorite of the franchise. But it has the same stuff for all the stuff, like for all the movies. It's the same like playing field, like movie wise. So like I can't put one over the other like on a ranking. I can put it over like what I'm gonna watch first, but they're all in my collection, so they're all there.
Absolutely.
So.
Dude, that's awesome. All right, so after this movie, the Evil Dead franchise was very quiet for a long time.
Yes.
Until 2013, when Fede Alvarez decided to remake The Evil Dead. And I don't have anything to hold up here, but I do have an actual special guest that is going to make her debut on the show. Because I know Tom has not seen it, correct?
I've not seen the remake. I don't really want to see the remake.
Come on.
I just with remakes, you know what it is with remakes? I like when product is like left alone. Like, it
I am
doesn't
the
need to
same
be
way.
touched. Like,
I feel like the way you guys were talking about it, like, I really want to see it now because I'm just like, wow, like, it sounds like 10 times better. I mean, the way you guys were talking about, like, a character named Ash, like, there was no Ash.
There's no Ash in the remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's kind of weird now because I'm just like, it's kind of like Insidious in a way, how it's like, it started out with the family and then it's just like new characters. It's like, okay, this is a little different, but like, I'm still feeling it.
They're bursting their bubble, yeah. But like, first of all, I would like to formally introduce Chyenne. Chyenne is one of the producers on the show. She sits next to Miranda. They are like our Powerpuff Girls, like and Sugar
I want to
Spice.
be Buttercup.
No, sorry.
Okay, fine. Miranda's Buttercup.
Miranda, you are not Buttercup. You are Bubbles times 10.
Oh my god, yeah, 'cause
She
she's
is
so
absolutely
blonde.
Buttercup. Yo, you have to just wear a green dress and then like talk like a man, kind of like Buttercup used to do, and you'd be gooch. But Chyenne, tell me what did you like about this remake? What were your thoughts on this
Okay,
remake?
so it gave me nightmares for a week. Let's like start off with that. It gave me tons of nightmares. It probably shouldn't have. Maybe it's just because I'm a girl. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, I was looking into the movie. Like, I first saw it when it was on YouTube, like in 2013. I don't know if you've ever been on YouTube and you saw that promo where like the advertisement would start before a video, and she's like, it's the character Mia. She's in the basement. She's possessed. Her head is peeking up, and she's like, "Don't skip the video, you little brat. Don't skip it. Don't skip it." And it freaked me out. I was like, "Oh my god, no way!" So I was like, "I have to see this movie." And I bought it on Blu-ray, and it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you guys haven't seen it.
Well, I've seen it.
Yo, you've seen it? Okay, so what do you think about it, John?
I think, well, first and foremost, I think it's a movie that the number one thing I like about it is they don't have the Ash character. Like, that was very smart because the plot in this one is basically it's kids going into the cabin again, but they have one of their friends is like withdrawing from drug addiction.
Okay.
And
Oh,
she's
yeah, that's Mia.
Mia is the main character, and she's like totally just, and at first they think all this crazy creepy stuff that's happening in the cabin is withdrawals from her. They think, oh, it's whatever.
Yeah, she was smelling like the stuff coming from the basement. They lift up the rug and they're like, what is this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and like I love that they changed it because they knew, like, just same way with Luca Guadagnino with the Suspiria remake. They knew you can't have another Ash. Bruce Campbell is Ash.
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell is old now. He can't be a teenager anymore. We're gonna scrap all that. We're gonna introduce new characters. We're gonna have new motives, new things, and like
playing it safe.
that was brilliant because then nobody can go, well, he's no Ash. There is no Ash in the movie, so it's perfect. That's really, I think, smart direction. The gore in this movie
Oh my
is
god, it's so
off
bloody.
the walls, insane, right?
Love it. Yes.
It's like
Crazy.
there's a scene where a girl like kind of cuts her own arm off.
Oh yeah, I remember that was the girlfriend. That was his name was David. David is Mia's brother, and then David had the girlfriend Natalie. She cut her arm off. I remember that. And then also Mia in the end got her arm cut off too when it was like underneath the car. But it was so like just the way like she had like strands of her arm like ripping off. Like it was just
That's
gross.
one of the best scenes for gore I've ever seen. Like she's just like this, and she's just cutting her arm off, and I was just like, ooh, I was like, are they gonna show all this? The answer is yes, they are gonna show all this, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like they do not hold back on that, and like there's another creepy scene in the basement of this movie where the guy goes down there and he starts getting the nail gun. I think
yeah.
the nail gun. He keeps getting nails shot into him. I was like, Jesus, like I will give Fede Alvarez this credit. This is a brutal movie, and it really has some good gore in it. And I think what they changed was a good thing. And like the final act of this, it's kind of just literally raining blood. Like that aesthetic
with
is
the abomination
beautiful.
coming out of the ground. I think like, oh my god, it was kind of crazy how like beforehand like. There was like a couple ways that he could have like killed like the demon inside of Mia, and he decides to bury Mia like alive, and she's like talking to him through the plastic bag, and she's like, David, it's me, why would you do this to me, I'm your sister, you know? And it's like, and he continues doing it, and then he buries her out, and she comes back to life, and you think the movie's over and it's a happy ending, but in the house, like, it's the guy with the glasses, I believe his name was Eric.
Yeah, the nail
He's
gun. The
still
guy got shot with a nail gun.
And then it's not so much of a happy ending anymore because David fought so hard for Mia to stay alive. And I mean, even though she did end up staying alive, like part of me just wanted to see the siblings just make it out of this.
Yes, and like when I first watched this, I was like, okay, the brother's gonna be Ash, and then he gets killed, and I was like, that's a pretty good plot twist. I love that final act. That final act is fantastic. And on the cover, I think the cover of the Blu-ray, it's all red, right? And she's
she's reaching out of the ground.
Yeah, this is the all green and in the forest. But in the remake, I think that cover makes more sense because it's literally the entire screen is blood red. And it's, again, you feel like you could taste the blood. And she kind of puts the chainsaw to the head, and it's just oh my gosh, it's such good.
I felt that.
Right? I feel like you could taste it. Again, it's one of those things, and it's like practical gore works. And like, I hate movies that do and rely on a lot of CGI. And I feel like this movie, in some of the scenes, like we were talking about the tree scene when they redid that, where the tree kind of attacks her, and some of the scenes with the water to kind of cut them off from, that's all CGI, and I think it doesn't look the greatest. But the blood couldn't look better.
Wow.
I really don't.
So that arm scene is all practical, pretty
all
much?
practical.
Wow.
I was like ready to poop myself when I saw it. Like, I was like, wow, this is a mainstream movie that went to the theater.
Yeah, you definitely need to
I'm
look
definitely
at
going to
it.
need to check it out.
I'd recommend it. Like, if I had to rate it out of 10, I think I'd give it like somewhere around a 7.
Okay.
I think it's a good remake. Like,
Does it do justice kind of to the franchise? Like, does it does it?
It has a post-credit scene involving Bruce Campbell.
All right.
I will give you that.
I'll take it. That's fine.
And like she said though, like the goading somebody in. That's classic Evil Dead.
Okay.
Oh, don't hurt me, Ash.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
He's like, oh, I know you're bad, but I gotta, because I loved you when you were not a demon.
And same thing with the girlfriend
Exactly,
too.
yeah.
Like David has to like kill his own girlfriend. She's literally in his arms, like, oh my god, I'm hurting. Like,
Yep.
it's
Wow.
so sad.
You play on those morals, and when you have to conflict the audience with something like that, that's paying homage to the original movies, because they always did that. The original movies did that. This remake did that. I think it's a very passable remake. The director also went on to do that movie with the people in that Don't Breathe. They like break into the guy's house.
Oh,
he's
the blind guy? Yeah, okay. All right.
That's what he went on to do. And
Okay.
I think he did a capable job of both
All right.
movies. I would say I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Cheyenne, what would you give it out of 10?
Oh my god. Well, I'm not a horror movie extraordinaire like you. To be honest, I would say an 8. I mean,
Wonderful.
yeah, I would give it a good score. To be honest.
I think it's a fun time at the movies.
I like
Again,
that.
another good
Yeah, it
popcorn
is.
movie, right? Did you see it with a bunch of friends?
Exactly. Yeah, I actually did have a couple of friends over when I was watching it. One of my friends actually showed it to me. She showed me a couple of Netflix horror movies too, but oh my god, Netflix horror movies, waste of time. Sorry. Terrible.
Yo, they are a waste of time. They're horrendously bad most of
Yeah.
the time. It's like The Exorcism of Molly Holly. I'm just like, wasn't Molly Holly a
12.
wrestler? Like,
Yeah.
this is horrendously
Demon
bad.
babies.
Like, who thought of this, man? And like, they're always the same. It's just they just pick a woman with 2 first names.
Yeah.
It's just like, because Emily Rose did well, and then they were like, screw it, how many, first, the next one's going to be The Exorcism of Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd actually watch that.
Dude, who wouldn't watch that? You talking about dear old baby Jesus and
He
his
wants to
gold
go
fleece
fast.
diapers. I want to go fast. Dude, I love that movie, man. I love the just all the scenes in that movie. It's classic. But all right, we got 4 minutes or so left. We can briefly discuss the. By the way, if you could possibly get, it's the Grindhouse releasing song. It should be 17 seconds on YouTube. That would be the outro. But not yet. We're gonna talk briefly about
You got it.
the show. Thank you, Cheyenne.
Signing off.
Thank you, Cheyenne. We
Thank
love
you. Thank you.
Love you too.
Cheyenne's brief cameo. I'm so glad I got both my producers on the show today. This is awesome. And, of course, the great Tom Larocca.
Thank you.
Wrapping this up here, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, man. What are your thoughts?
Just a really cool show. It has fun with itself. It definitely knows it's a comedy. It plays into the lore of Evil Dead, of the franchise, which is great.
What is it called again?
What's that?
What is it called again?
Grindhouse releasing song. It's 17 seconds. Just write Grindhouse releasing song.
Thank you.
It should be 17 seconds long. It's not. I'm sorry about that. Sorry,
That's
that,
all
ladies and
good.
gentlemen. For some reason, I lost my show intro and outro for some reason, but here we are. But yeah, man, like I watched the opening episode of this, and I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's definitely a lot of fun. It's a shame that it's over now. But the way it kind of ended maybe leads maybe we'll do another movie. Who knows? There's nothing been announced yet, but it definitely was fun. It was a fun show. It played into the lore and all the story behind everything. It just plays more into that. Like they talk more of the Necronomicon. They talk more of the Kandarian dagger. Like there's a lot of different stuff, like things that you'd seen in the other movies but never really knew much about. And there's cool characters in it. Bruce Campbell's obviously awesome. He plays Ash in it. But you have Pablo, which is a hysterical character. Lucy Lawless is in it, and she is just a great character in that. So everybody has their roles, and they're just really cool characters. So it's definitely a really fun show. If you like the franchise, like it's good for it. There's a lot of episodes, but it's worth your time watching. It always would come back around Halloween, so it was always kind of cool, like something to kick you through that Halloween season. So it was definitely cool. I like that show. It was fun. I'm kind of sad it's over, but
yeah,
all good things must come to an end.
I guess so. It got canceled, unfortunately, so it will not be renewed for a season 4. But like the first, I remember the first episode, the line, somebody goes like, "All right, man, you want to come over and watch Monday Night Raw tonight?" I was like, right there, I was like, you just won me over. Like, that's like something I would ask, and you don't hear that much. You never hear wrestling, mentioned with movies or television shows like this. And I was like, okay, this is my kind of people writing this, and like it is a balls to the wall fun show.
It's
like,
definitely really fun.
It's totally. It feels like if Evil Dead 2 was a television show.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's totally like a lot of gore, a lot of fun, a lot of ooze, a lot of just craziness. And
definitely.
Like, that's why I think Evil Dead as a whole has stood the test of time, don't you think?
No, yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, it has like the best elements of that stuff, of horror movies, of comedies. It has all the best elements put together, and it makes like a really good franchise.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But we're winding down. We have like 40 seconds or so left. Dude, Tom, I wanted to thank you.
Thank
so
you so
much
much
for coming on the show,
Thank
man.
you for
it was
having
an
me.
absolute
It was so
honor.
fun. I had a great time.
Are our Steelers going to win this Sunday?
I'm thinking so.
Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles, Doug Fat Ass Marone. We're coming for you, baby.
We're ready.
We're ready, and we're willing, and we're able, and we're going to make you 3-7.
Willing and Gable.
Damn right.
Too sweet.
Jason Jordan, too sweet. But we're going to have Chyenne play us out. Thank you, guys. We love you. I'm the Pajama Pants Player, the best in the world. Too sweet. Cutting.